Welcome to Industry Vancouver, conversations about the residential real estate industry with Andrew Hasman and Jeff Benna.
Hey, Jeff, good morning.
Andrew, how are you?
I always look forward to these conversations, and more so this morning than ever, because we just had an election here in Canada last night. It's April the 29th. We're all waking up. I don't know if we're hungover, but maybe we're hungover from all the crazy stuff that's been going on the last 38 days of this very contentious election here in Canada. But I got to say,
it's funny because it seemed like it took forever. I was talking to a client of mine from the States, and he said to me this morning, he said, "Oh my God, your elections are so fast."
well, and that's the way it should be. Like, oh my goodness, in the States, it's a 2-year run. Here it's 38,
Absolutely.
40 days, whatever. So I just want to say I'm feeling relief, and I think a lot of other Canadians are. I'm sure you are. Not so much as to because who won the election. Not going to get political as to, what side we're on, but more so just it's nice to put this behind us because Canada, since Parliament was prorogued in early January, nothing's been happening politically. The business of the day hasn't been happening really since early January. So it's really time for the politicians to get back to work, Canadians to come together and to try to get our economy jump-started and uncertainty behind us and back to work.
Yes. So Let's take a quick look what actually did happen. Just a quick summary. So the Liberals did win again, but just barely.
Yep.
4 straight win. The last count that I saw 168 seats total, just
That's what
shy of the majority.
Yes.
Conservatives picked up seats, 144 total, but Pierre Poilievre lost his own riding.
Incredible. I didn't expect that. I mean, I didn't know who he was running against or what the odds of that were, but to actually have him lose is a bit of a slap in the face and a bit of a shock.
Shocking, because hasn't he been elected like 8 times or something?
He was the incumbent the last number of times. So I guess, these politicians, they're busy running across the country. They don't get a chance to sort of spend much time in their own riding, but still, usually they run in an area where it's a pretty foregone conclusion. So to see him get defeated, I guess that'll be interesting to see if the Conservatives want to hold a leadership run or if he's going to continue. And again, who knows? But I think most importantly, the Liberals have a mandate, and I think it's back to business. And again, for Canadians and the business community, it's nice to be able to put this amount of uncertainty behind us now and just get back to the order of the day, get back to business.
Yeah, I'm going to call it a mandate light.
That's fine. Look, I always think this sort of a government, they're held a little bit more accountable now because, there is always that risk. But if you take the Conservative total, I forget what the total is, and you add, let's say, the NDP, there's still not as many as the Liberals. So they'd have to form a coalition with the Bloc, a separatist political party. So I don't know if that would be realistic or not. But bottom line is this. For now, I think Canadians are done with elections. We want to get this behind us. I don't think anyone has the will to go through another one of these anytime soon. So it's back to Parliament, back to getting business done, passing laws, and hopefully introducing policy that gets our economy moving.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny that the numbers I saw this morning, 168 seats for the Liberals, 144 for the Conservatives, 5 seats, huge loss for the NDP.
That's massive. Yeah.
But 168 and 5 actually puts them over the hump they could have a coalition without the Bloc. They dropped down to 21 seats.
Yeah.
Greens, Elizabeth May is back. She's their single MP. No breakthrough for the Greens on this round. And impressively, huge turnout. Canadians showed up in big numbers, lots of early voting, lots of energy around this. So everybody's involved in the conversation, and I was really relieved to see so many Canadians coming present to participate in this democratic process.
I think we can thank Donald Trump for the impressive turnout of Canadians and for the biggest political comeback, I think, in Canadian history, where the Liberals were at about 18% back in early January. And the minute Trump started opening his mouth and Carney decided to jump into the ring, the political fortunes of the Liberals turned around dramatically. I mean, no one ever would have thought this was going to happen in late December, early January. So it's quite a story. It'll be one for them.
And stop me if I'm wrong, but Carney's never been elected to anything, has he?
He's not an elected. No, he's not a politician. He's a banker and he's a businessman.
Yeah.
In fact, he spent the last number of years, I think, obviously in the UK, where he was the governor of the Bank of England.
Yes.
And then I think he spent a lot of time in the US because I think his company, Brookfield, is based out of New York. So he's back in Canada. And again, whether you're on his political side or not, I think it's great that we've got this done. It's out of the way. And let's get back to business. Let's get back to work. And anyone that is still, thinking uncertainty, which there's still uncertainty out there. There's no question.
Yes.
But this is one layer that's hopefully been dealt with and is going to help our market, the real estate market, get back a little bit more on track, because it's definitely been a very unprecedented spring market here across the country. But, we're in Vancouver, so we're talking the Lower Mainland.
Exactly. So let's talk about what that means. Housing supply is probably going to still stay front and center. There's a possibility of some new infrastructure or rental accommodations coming on stream. There'll be likely stable policy, reassuring for investors and buyers. And we'll probably have some more conversation about speculation, short-term rentals, and these kinds of things. So all in all, I think, as you described, one less uncertainty, hopefully more confidence for buyers. So that kind of leads us to today's topic, which is best practices for buyers, how to get the home and the value that you want.
Yeah. And I think, again, whether the Liberals got in or the Conservatives, that question, I think, is just sort of is universal in the sense that anyone that's looking to get into the market, whether they were doing it 2 weeks ago or 2 weeks from now, one has to do their due diligence. One needs to engage the services of someone like you and I, Jeff, that are experienced, know the markets, and can help sort of navigate and direct people, allowing them to make informed, wise decisions and decisions that solve their real estate dilemma, whether they're looking to upsize, downsize, go sideways, giving them all the facts and helping them along in the process.
For sure. And organized real estate is really a very unique blend of intense competition between agents with required high levels of cooperation. So one of the ways that I tend to look at it is, as a listing agent, what practices do I really appreciate from buyers and their agents that help the buyers get the home that they want? What are sort of the best practices for shopping for a home in this environment, right?
Yeah, there's no question. So give us some examples, Jeff. Where are you leading with this?
So the first place I go to, common sense, reasonableness, and good manners are so powerful, even though they seem really basic. So how do I turn that mindset of, do I want to be right about something or do I want to be happy? And how does that apply to real estate negotiations? So starting from the very beginning of the process, just from booking an appointment. So why is it critical to show up for your appointments, or at least communicate if you can't? So if you're a buyer, you say, oh my gosh, this house looks great. You call your agent, the agent sets up an appointment, and everybody goes over there, they get the house all prepared and they get it all ready. And then as a buyer, you show up late or you don't show up at all. That's really not the best way to create goodwill for the seller, if indeed it turns out to be something that you want to offer them.
Okay. So now see where you're going. And it's funny. I always tell my clients, when they're out there looking at property, whether I'm present with them or they're at an open house, try to be a little bit positively engaging with the listing agent, because if it does come down to a multiple offer situation and the realtor, the listing agent, has met your clients, and if your clients were a little bit grumpy or they were negative or just didn't give a positive vibe, that can actually affect how the buyer's offer is responded to when it's time to present offers. Do you agree with that? I've seen that in a lot of cases.
I've seen it tons of time.
Yeah.
The thing that always amazes me, somebody taught me this a lot very early in my career. They said, when the buyers are complaining the loudest, it means that they're the most interested. So I always take that when somebody comes in and they start slamming the house and finishing, oh, this is garbage, and the price is way too high, and all this kind of stuff. I always get really excited when I hear that, because it's an indicator to me that, oh, wow, they really like it. But if you don't have that context, it's just going to put people off. And so, yes, you've got an opinion about the home. Yes, it's your money that you're parting with, but the best place to sort of have that conversation is with the agent who's representing you.
Right.
You're not going to win any friends. You're really not going to be able to help your negotiating by knocking down the agent or the sellers or whoever else happens to be there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard this a lot of times where let's say there's 4 or 5 offers on a property, which is still happening right now. I mean, one of my colleagues just had 6 offers on his listing. So there are people out there looking. But a lot of times it comes down to, as the listing agent, you've met the buyers, they were out there looking at the property. Some people you had great conversation with, just nice people, easygoing, and then some not so much. And a lot of times when it comes down to it, if price and terms are kind of similar, you know, you kind of want the people that you had a nice conversation with to be the ones that actually get the deal. And so people, if they're difficult when they're coming through, or they're, like you said, they're very critical, they appear kind of difficult, that can actually work against the buyer when they're like that at a showing, or, you know, when in talking to the listing agent. So I always tell my clients, try to be friendly, try to be pleasant, because that sometimes when it comes down to a very multiple offer situation and the offers are kind of similar, sometimes advantage goes to the nicer people.
Absolutely. To that end, if you show up at an open house and you're working with an agent, don't be shy. Like, introduce yourself. Hey, I don't need a last name. I don't need a phone number. I don't need a whatever. It's, hey, I'm Frank. This is Sally. We're working with whatever realtor he's representing us. Oh, that's great. Come on in. Here's a feature sheet. Go around, take a look. Any questions, just let me know.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody who sort of walks around the side of the house, sneaks in the back door.
Yeah. Walks in with their dirty shoes on, doesn't take her shoes off, right? Yeah, those little things go a long way though, right? It's all about that positive vibe, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking of a lot of funny stories where people have really, I think, like, they felt that they were doing something that was to their advantage, but it really did play against them. Like saying, oh, I don't care about this property. Oh, or
just being difficult. And then you think, well, okay, once the offer's accepted, how difficult are they going to be once they've got the place tied up and they've got a week to 10 days to make their final decision? How much source are they going to give us when it comes to trying to get the subjects off versus people that are a little bit more easier going and just pleasant to deal with? So I always tell my clients, try to be pleasant, because if you're difficult, it can work against you. And sometimes that doesn't matter, but in a case where there are multiple buyers offering on a property, just being a little bit warm and friendly does go a long way versus the opposite. So that's some advice that I was giving my clients. I said, if you walk into a home and you don't like the house and it's really not for you, then okay, maybe not as important. But if it's something that you think you might want to bid on, sometimes getting the listing agent on your side a little bit can be the difference between getting the offer accepted and being bypassed, being passed over, right? And so just be careful how you conduct yourself in front of the listing agent, because it can make a difference.
For sure.
Right?
Like all things, you catch more houses with honey, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know? Yeah. It's all about cooperation, relationships. And for our clients out there looking, just give a nice smile to the listing agent, tell them who you are, tell them who you're working with. And you can leave the critical stuff about the property to keep it between their agent, so myself and them, but don't start spilling the beans to the listing agent.
Exactly.
Because then you just sort of giving the vibe that you're maybe difficult to deal with, and that can work against you.
And there's always going to be time for that. There's always going to be time in a negotiation to get your points across, to hear what's going on. It reminds me of something else, though, that's critically important. Is we sort of glanced over this, but the most important thing is be pre-qualified and have a good idea what it is that you're out there and looking for.
Yeah.
And most importantly, once you've found an agent that you're working with, let them do some of the work. If you see a home and you're interested in it, call them, have them call the listing agent. You're going to get a way better response from an agent who's inquiring on your behalf than just calling off a sign. And because the listing agents, they can't represent you. We're not allowed to double end anymore. And the best way to get the best information and the most certain call back to get into an appointment, if it's a home you want to see, call your agent, have them do all the legwork, have them do all the research, have them do all the work. and then work with them to get into the property and decide if it's right for you or not.
So really what you're trying to say is, Jeff, call Andrew Hasman or Jeff Benna. Don't call your agent. Just call us. We'll help you. But yeah, no, true. I get emails and calls all the time. You do as well, I know, off, realestateweekly.ca, and it's buyers just inquiring on their own, and they'll start to ask questions. Why are they selling? How long have they been there? Are there any problems with the property? This and that. And these are questions that a lot of times you can't really answer because you're not representing these people.
You're actually, Andrew, you're exactly right. You're not allowed to answer those questions.
But a lot of them probably they're not aware of that because maybe they haven't bought a home in 10 years, or it's the first time buying a home. So I'll say to them, do you have an agent that you're working with? It's best that you have your agent contact us, and then we can provide the information through your agent. And they'll say, oh yeah, no, we're actually just starting to look, and we're not going to be buying a home till next year. Well, so there you go. But again, people that are actually ready to do something now, like you said, call their agent, find someone that's active in the area that they're looking, and get them to sort of do a lot of the groundwork, and then make sure that the information they're provided is one that helps them make a great decision. Because the buying process, at the end of the day, Jeff, when I'm out there helping people, I love it. This is the part of the business that I love. I know you love it as well. The engagement. When I'm sitting with people, and especially if they're past clients, but even if they're new clients, and you've got a good vibe going, this is the part of the business that we really love, is the people part of the business. And so buying a home should be a fun process, and anything we can do to make it a really enjoyable learning experience process, one that in the end of the day gets them a great property and achieves their goals. That's what it's all about, right? It's the 100%. It's the people part of the business. That's at the end of the day. People will say to me, Andrew, what is it about this business that really drives you? I say, you know what? It's the people. I just love hanging out with my clients. I've got some amazing clients. That's really the honest truth.
Well, and your clients become your friends. So it's such a nice thing. And to that end, I just want to underscore a point we made a minute ago. I'll hear too, oh, yeah, we have an agent, but we don't want to bother them.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, any of my clients are out there, if you're looking at a home, if you see something that's interested, I want to be bothered. Please call me. It's my absolute pleasure to take that call.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. No question's a dumb question.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you don't want to call me at 10 o'clock at night, please don't, unless it's an emergency. Just shoot me a text message. I'm usually on my phone till late, and I'll either respond or respond in the morning, but you're never bothering us. It's part of what we do. If you want to become a realtor, you know that you're on the call 7 days a week at crazy hours. And of course, when we have time off, we turn our phone off, but don't ever think that you're bothering us. That's just part of it. That's what we're here to do.
That's just part of the deal.
Part of the deal. Yeah. If you want a 9-to-5 job, don't be a realtor. Go do something else. Right?
That's right.
And so again, there's so much, especially in today's world where there's so much information and everything happens at a breakneck speed. If you're a buyer and you're looking to get into the market or whatever you're looking to do, that's what we're here for, is to help sort of navigate you through so much information, so much policy, all the rules, just making sure that you're entering into a good agreement and you're finding the right home.
Well, and exactly. And to that end, that's one of the other advantages of calling us, is that you say, oh, what do you think of this house? What do you think of the location? What do you think of this building? What do you think of this suite? What do you think of this outlook? After between the two of us, 65 or 70 years of experience in this business, in this city, there's not a lot of buildings we haven't been in. There's not a lot of houses that we haven't been in. And so we can say, oh, you know what? That's right around the corner from some new development. You're going to have a tower looking in your backyard. Oh, that building is totally compromised envelope. Let's absolutely steer clear of it, unless you don't mind being under tarps for the next 2 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of things that you can verify. Your agent, us, we know what your situation is. If you've got a dog, if you've got a cat, if you want to do short-term rentals, all of these things, we can do a little bit of pre-qualifying, save everybody time and energy, and make sure you're looking at the right things that are going to be the best fit for what you want, for you, for your family, for making a home and a life in a place that you're going to be happy in.
Yeah, no question about it. I think that, as I said, experience can end up saving our clients a lot of time and just a lot of energy in the process. Because like you said, a lot of times people will call us on certain properties and we just know right away that's not a good fit for various reasons. Why waste our time? Right.
Some other little key things that you can have, every transaction is going to have a deposit, at some point. So if you're thinking and you're out shopping, one of the great ways to be ready is to have access to those funds so that they're ready. We talk a lot as realtors about tiebreakers. And a tiebreaker, this is the idea that if we are in competing offers, two very similar buyers, if they have the same price, if they have the same dates, if they have the same terms, nothing weird on included items, they're not asking for it to be cleaned and unnecessarily guarantees about, 40-year-old appliances being in working condition on the day of. You've got to have something that can separate you. So maybe one of those tiebreakers could be a slightly larger deposit. So those two offers identical. If one of them has a 5% deposit and one of them has a 10% deposit,
it comes down to deposit.
It comes down to the deposit.
Yeah.
If one deposit is going to be paid upon subject removal by bank draft, is a lot better than within 3 business days, by a personal check. So make sure you put all those little pieces in place, right?
I never understand this. When an offer comes in, it's not my offer, it's an offer from a buyer's agent. And the deposit, after waiting a week for the subjects to come off, sometimes it's 10 days, that they put in their deposit to be received within 1 business day of subject removal. And I'm thinking, why, for their benefit as well, why have to wait an extra day to get the deposit? Like on subject removal, as far as I'm concerned, that's when the deposit is due.
Yeah.
So the other way is, the subjects come off and you can't really congratulate your seller because there's no money.
Until that deposit?
Yeah. And then what happens if the next
it's
day,
a Friday afternoon? You gotta wait till Monday.
Yeah, no. So we always change our contracts deposit upon subject removal. I don't understand why agents put in there within 1 business day. Sometimes it's 2 business days.
Yeah.
Why should we have to wait an extra day or 2? I don't understand that. When the deal's done, that's when the bank draft should be provided or the wire transfer sent. I don't understand. But anyway, absolutely good point, Jeff. When it comes down to if price is the same, terms and conditions are the same, then the seller will look at the size of the deposit and when the deposit's actually due. And so as a buyer, you want to make sure that your money's ready. And that's usually not an issue, because if you've got a 1 week subject on there or 10 days, you've got that 1 week or 10 days to get your money into your checking account so that you can get your bank to either wire the funds or provide a bank draft. You want to make sure your investments are cashed so your money's ready on hand to provide that deposit.
Yes. And along with having that ready, you want to pre-qualify yourself so you know exactly what your budget is.
Yeah.
Exactly what your tolerances are. And then make sure, because there's 2 parts to that financing question. There's the buyer's financing, their covenant, and how qualified they are. But then the part that everybody forgets about is the house also needs to qualify for the loan.
Yes.
By way of an appraisal. So you could be the most rock solid borrower, big income, great covenant, lots of down payment. But if the house that you're buying doesn't pass appraisal or there's something quirky or weird about it, well.
Yeah. And that brings me to another point now. You're right. I mean, I can't remember in the past, very often where a house where the value of the property that it's contracted at the appraisal doesn't support that level. It has happened.
Yes.
It's pretty uncommon. It happened in cases where there were multiple offers and the price got jacked right up.
Yeah.
So that can happen, and it's a good point.
But it wasn't that it wasn't worth that. It just wasn't worth that yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other big issue now, as you know, is with regards to property insurance.
Yes.
We're seeing this on a lot of homes, especially homes that are, say, 20 years and older. I just had a home. We had my client buying it, 25-year-old home, and he was having a really hard time getting home insurance. Yeah. Because the home had some poly B, believe it or not. So 2000 vintage house. And it also had an original roof on it, which was now 25 years old. And the insurance company said, well, no, anything over 20 years is an issue. So my guy called me in a panic. So how I understand it now is you can actually get insurance, but the insurance company is going to want to come out usually within a month or 6 weeks after completion and do an on-site inspection and then make recommendations for you to possibly do some upgrades. My guy was panicking that he wouldn't be able to buy the house because he wouldn't be able to get insurance on it. And, if you're getting a mortgage, you need insurance. Right. So that has become a big issue now as well, right?
Well, and that happened to us on that garage right out back. We had a relatively new-ish roof on the house that we bought, but the garage roof had never been done. And as a condition of our insurance, they actually came out, they looked at it, he said, your insurance is going to be voided unless that roof is replaced.
And how long did they give you to actually put the new roof on?
I think we had 60 days.
Yeah. Okay. But that is a huge issue now for home buyers out there looking to buy a home. Yes, the current home that you're buying probably has insurance on it. It's had insurance since the current owners bought it, eons ago. But that doesn't mean it's insurable today because all the rules have changed. Insurance companies have really changed their policies with regards to older structures. And when I say older, 25 years and older, not talking about character homes. We're talking about homes that were built 25 years ago. So if you got a home 25 years ago and older and it's got an original roof on it, or maybe it's got some poly B piping in the basement or poly B period, these are red flags to the insurance companies, which may cause you grief when getting home insurance. Be aware of that.
And just to be fair, if you have poly B in your house, it's not the end of the world. There's a couple of different kinds. Some of it's problematic. Some of it's not. Just want to put the big...
We're
not anti-poly B.
No, it's flagged in the insurance industry though, right? I mean, I owned a home for 9 years at poly B, never had an issue. And we've sold many homes.
Andrew, it goes back to the idea of aluminum wiring as well. And people say, oh my God, there's aluminum wiring in this house. Oh, it'll never set. Well, I've lived, I'm almost 60. I've lived half my life in properties that have had aluminum wiring in them.
And that was from the 1970s, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm still here.
And how many times have you had a building inspector come in and of course they red flag it with aluminum and they need aluminum wiring. Then you get a call from the buyer's agent and say, well, there's a problem. The house has aluminum wiring. It won't be able to get insurance, this and that. And I'm thinking there's thousands upon thousands of structures, homes, condos across the city that have aluminum wiring and they've got insurance, but the industry's changed. And in a lot of cases, the insurance company is going to want to come out after completion, do an inspection, and they may make you make some changes.
And they may. And if they do, I mean, that's part of owning the home, right?
Yeah. And I guess the point is, because we were talking about making your offer fair and this and that, but keep in mind when you're making offers on older properties, insurance can be an issue. So that's a clause that you really do need to be in there to protect yourself, because you can't assume a 30-year-old or an 80-year-old house is insurable. Just because the home has insurance on it right now doesn't mean today you can go out and get a new policy, because you'll need a new policy. You can't assume the existing policy. And the insurance company might even be the same company that might be insured by Lloyd's of London or Chubb or whoever. And it doesn't mean that you go in there today and want a new policy on it, that they're going to say yes again. Rules have changed. Now they're going to have different standards to which they will look at when it comes to whether or not the property is insurable or not.
Absolutely.
Right?
So we talked about deposit, one thing. Dates. Let's talk about dates a little bit. So the easiest way to get the dates right if you're contracting or attempting to buy a place is just ask. Sometimes people need long dates. Sometimes people need short dates. If both parties need the exact opposite, it just may be that somebody's not going to get their way, or you're not going to be able to buy that particular house. But it saves a lot of time and energy to ask and just get what the expectations are early on. Same with included items. If there's some particular thing that the seller really wants to, you just got to ask yourself, how important is it to me that I have this lampshade in the dining room? And if it's important, well, then stick to it and try and get it. But if it's not, let it go, let them have it, let them be happy. You've got to really decide when you're negotiating what's actually important to you, what's actually important to the seller, and then how many of those things can you give to them that they're important so that you can get what you want.
Yeah, which is the property. So be flexible on your dates.
Yes.
And try to provide the seller with their dates, especially if it's a competitive situation. And don't be so picky with all the included items. Just, just take the appliances and don't start asking for the plant pots and the wall sconces and the dining room light fixture. If the seller wants them, let them have them. Just don't start losing the house over silly little items.
Exactly. And to that end, you decide which is more important for you, money or convenience.
Yeah.
Like if you need a specific set of dates and the seller is not interested in those dates, but you absolutely have to have them, well, you can pretty well rest assured you're not going to get it for a lower price because you need something to make your life more convenient.
You're going to have to give something in return. It's usually money.
It's usually money.
Yeah.
So just always be willing to sort of make that trade-off.
Yeah.
And likewise, when you're buying, if the seller needs some particular dates, that's not any difference to you, give them whatever dates they need and know that there'll be hopefully a corresponding discount for you on what you're buying.
Yeah, no, it's all about being flexible. And again, knowing every situation is a little bit different, but if you're in a multiple competitive situation, you want to be flexible, no question, and not be too picky.
For sure.
Right?
So dates, deposit, included items, terms. I always think in terms when I'm writing an offer. Every seller loves to see a non-subject offer, but it's just not practical all the time.
Yeah.
So when you are writing your terms, just make sure they're simple, they're correctly written, they cover all the contingencies that you need to have covered, and leave out any of the sort of the weird stuff like, I don't know, pick something weird that we see in
subject to a feasibility study.
Oh yeah, the infamous feasibility study. Yes. I want 45 days to complete it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My goodness.
Just make it as simple and clean as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody wants to think that the house that they're going to get into, it's going to be pristine and magical. But I can tell you from a seller's point of view, if they're selling a rental property or a tenanted property and they're not going to professionally clean it, they're not going to shampoo the carpets, they're not going to guarantee that all the appliances are in working condition. They're selling it as is. And normally the price will reflect that. But if you want to have your offer accepted, once again, as a tiebreaker, don't make more work for the seller when somebody else might not.
Yeah. And again, so if you have to clean it yourself or get your own cleaners in and do a little bit of tuning up after the fact, usually not a big deal. But again, if you start putting all these demands for the seller in there, that's sometimes a reason for them not to look at your offer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the big things are you're practicing humility, you're coming with an open mind, you're trying to create a situation where you have a lot of empathy and understanding for what the seller's position is. The more you understand what they want, it'll be that much easier for you to get what you want. So it's also powerful to remember the whole world isn't about us. The whole world isn't about me. So whatever your personal reasons are for wanting to buy that house, they either have nothing to do or may cause some regret for why the seller's selling it. So like, don't overlay your emotions on their situation. Just keep a little bit back from it. Have a conversation with your agent, negotiate as best you can, given what you know and what you can find out. And I think that's the true path to success.
Yeah. And another important thing that we got to touch on as well is it's important to engage the services of a realtor that's respected in the industry.
Yes.
Because as you know, Jeff, we work on the multiple listing service. That's where most of the properties are advertised for sale, is through MLS. And MLS works because of cooperation between agents and brokers. And so if you're a buyer's agent that is well respected in the industry amongst their peers and is liked, that goes a long way to helping the buyer secure a successful outcome.
Absolutely.
We all like to work with when there's a transaction being done. If I'm the listing agent and I'm dealing with another broker at the other end, it doesn't mean I have to know them, but it's so much easier when they're professional and they're pleasant to deal with. That makes a big difference in helping put a transaction together successfully.
Well, and isn't it a pleasant surprise, Andrew? And, I'll experience this from time to time where we'll be helping a buyer in an area sort of outside Vancouver where we're not that well known.
Yeah.
Or a buyer from another area will be working in Vancouver who we don't really have a relationship.
Yeah.
Isn't it a pleasant surprise when that other agent shows up when they say they were going to show up, does the things that they were saying they were going to do, has access to the information and provides it in a reasonable way without hesitation. And it's just so much better to work with somebody like that and not have your time wasted, and to make sure that everybody's on track with what's actually important, which is the seller divesting the house and the buyer getting a house that they want at a value that they're comfortable with.
It makes the whole process an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
Now, Jeff, I got to tell you, with that all being said, we got to wrap up.
We do. Quick disclaimer, we want to offer actionable, relevant information. This isn't investment advice. We're better realtors than accountants, lawyers, and financial advisors. And full disclosure, we're owners of Vancouver real estate. We like it when prices go up, and we make a fee when we help you.
But we love this business, and we love the people part of the business. So if you want to work with two great agents, Jeff Benna, Andrew Hasman, we're here to always help.
We have some in mind.
Hey, buddy,
All
we'll
right.
talk to you in a couple of weeks. All good.
Thank
We
you.
hope our clients enjoyed today's latest episode.
Yes. Thanks, bud. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in today. We appreciate your time and your attention. If we can be of further help or information, we look forward to hearing from you. We respectfully acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.